Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video we're going to be recreating a weather app or weather forecast application using React and Tailwind CSS. So it's going to be a simple but I think a really great application for us to complete. So basically what you're going to have an input field where you can go ahead and type in the location of the weather that you want return, and you're going to get that information right over here. And also you're going to add this little functionality that if you click on this little icon over here, it will pull back the information of your current location. So as with all my applications, I do leave you guys a little of unfinished business, if I can put it that way, so that you guys need to implement by adding more functionality to this application. So for instance, this application you guys will see returns only Celsius. Doesn't matter what location you search for, you guys need to go ahead and add that functionality to say, depending on the location being searched, are they using Celsius or are they using Fahrenheit, and return that information accordingly. So we're going to be building out this application using Tailwind CSS for our styling. We're going to go ahead and follow this installation process. I think let's just go ahead and do that right now in this introduction. You guys can go ahead and just follow this. You can go to tailwindcss.com/docs/guides/create React app, and then follow this installation guide over here. It's very straightforward. Just make sure that you do everything that is listed inside of these steps so that you don't go ahead and run into any bugs at a later stage. Once you guys go ahead and follow all of this installation process, there's a couple of files that you can delete in your React application. I'm going to show you in a bit because I already went ahead and deleted those in my React application that I am going to start when we create this application. So once you went ahead and follow all of these steps, you're about to almost ready to go. We need to just go ahead and sign up for a free membership with openweather.com. So you can go ahead and just create a new account by clicking on create new account. All of these links, they're going to be listed in the description below, so no need to try to memorize or pause the video. You guys can go ahead and just fill in your username, fill in your email address, fill in your password right there, and also make sure you selected you're over 16 years old. You can need to agree to the terms and conditions and privacy policy. All of this tick box you don't actually need to tick. Make sure you think that I'm not a robot, and create a new account. So once you have done that, you created a new account, please make sure you're using a valid email address because they are going to ask you to verify that email address. You're going to need to sign in. So I'm just going to go into sign in over here, and I'm going to sign in using my email address and my password quickly over here. So I'm just going to go ahead and type in my email address. I'm going to type in my password over here, and I'm going to log in. So this is the screen that you guys should also see once you have logged in, and you're going to go ahead and create an API key that we are going to use in our application by clicking on this API key tab over here, and that's going to come to this section. You guys can go ahead and click on create a key, and you can just go ahead and name it whatever you want to name it. I name mine weather app. I'm just going to say weather app 2 because I already have weather app. Click on generate API key. You guys will see it's listed on the left hand side of the column. So you need to keep this tab open because we are going to come back and copy that API key at a later stage. Lastly but not least, the last step over here you guys will see is a dribble tab. So this is the guy who designed actually the application, who inspired me to do it. His name is Gohan Baskar, so I'm just giving credit where credit is due. I hope I'm not butchering his name, but he came up with this beautiful weather forecast design for an application, and I try to keep my application as close as possible to what he has, obviously with a couple of tweaks, as you guys can see, adding a little bit of my own styling in there. But that also helps if you're a developer trying to get an eye for design, especially when it comes to layout, spacing, typography. It is good to just maybe get a design from the web and try to mimic it and duplicate it and have it as close as possible to the original design. With that much said, I'm going to go ahead and close this tab because we're not going to use it anymore, and I'm going to go ahead and close our Tailwindcss tab because I do hope you guys have followed all of these instructions in order for you to get started designing this application. So before we get designing, while I'm just dragging over my Visual Studio Code over here, which is my code editor of choice. You guys can use whatever code editor you want to use, but I use Visual Studio Code. And as you guys can see, if you compare your files to mine, you will see I've removed a couple of files like the test.js, app.css, all of those files that I would not use I have removed from my application. And also in your index.js, make sure you are linking your index.css right there on top, and in index.css make sure you are calling this at Tailwind component. And once you've done all of that, you should have the same file structure that I currently have on my side, which means that you are ready to get started coding this application. So before we go any further, I need to ask you guys to go ahead and click on the like button if you like this type of content. Click on my subscribe button, hit that bell notification button so to get notified every time I publish a new video. And yeah, that's about it. Stay tuned to the end of this video and smash that like button once more if you haven't done so that the YouTube algorithm can actually see that people like this type of content. So let's go ahead and get started designing this application. We have our app that we have our app.js file. So we're going to create a one file just outside our source directory, which is going to be our .env file, our environment file, which is going to keep all of our information that we do not want to share throughout the application. So let's go ahead and do a right click. Just make sure you're outside the source directory. Click new file. I'm going to say .env for .environment, hit enter, and with that created, I'm going to go ahead and create those couple environments. So the first one I want to create is React underscore app underscore API underscore key, which is then the key that we just created. I'm going to go copy and paste that here. The second one I'm going to go create, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to say React underscore app underscore URL. So this URL is actually the API URL that we are going to use. Just capitalize everything, which is the API URL that we are going to use. And then lastly, what I do have is also React underscore app underscore icon URL. So this icon URL is actually where we're going to pull the icons from. I'm just going to go ahead and copy this from my existing project. I'm going to copy my API key, paste it there. I'm going to copy the URL. So I'm going to show you guys in a minute where am I getting this URL from. Paste it there. And then lastly, I'm going to copy my icon URL. And I'm going to paste it over here. So as you guys can see, I have api.openweathermap.org/data 2.5 forecast, and then I have my app icon, sorry, my icon URL is openweathermap.org/img/wn. I'm going to save that. So I just saved my environment file. I'm going to close it out because I'm not going to use it again. I'm just going to remove this out of the way quickly. We're going to come back to this. And as I've said earlier, you guys need to copy your API key and paste your API key where we have created React app API key. Paste that API key so that you can communicate with this service. So I'm going to go ahead and just click on APIs right here on top. On this API page, what you're going to do is just scroll down to the 5-day 3-hour forecast. Click on this API doc over here. And on this page, this is the endpoint that we are going to use, which is the forecast passed through the query, which is going to be the string of the city that we are searching for, the city that we've entered, and the API key, and we're going to get those results back for that city, the weather forecast for that city. The other endpoint that I want to bring to your attention is the one here, where we're also going to search for weather forecast using coordinates, the geographic coordinates, and that we're going to use passing through the latitude and longitude of your. Just drag my Visual Studio Code onto the screen for you guys to see, and we're gonna start setting up some variables that we are going to use throughout this application. So the first variable that I'm setting up is, as you guys would know, my API key. So I'm going to say API key because I'm going to use this my application, and the way that I'm going to have access to that is by saying process.env. remember that environment file we created earlier, so I'm now accessing that file, the environment file, and now in environment file I know I created a string called React underscore app underscore, it's double P underscore API underscore key. So whatever is in this, whatever in the environment file is linked to this is going to be saved to this environment for me to use. And I'm going to set up a couple of more variables that we are going to use throughout the application. First one is I'm just going to call it no data. I'm going to say set no data, and I'm going to say use state for this. And currently what I'm going to say is just a string that says no data yet. So this is just some default strings and variables that you are going to use throughout the application. So this one I'm just going to say search term, if I can type, set search term, and I'm going to do the same here. I'm going to say use state. So our search term is in default is going to be empty because you're not searching for anything when the application loads. And I'm going to go ahead and create another one, which is going to call, I'm just going to call this one weather data. I'm going to say set weather data, and as you guys must have guessed it, it's also going to use state, and it's going to be an empty array. Next one, I'm going to say const city. So I'm just going to say set the city. I'm going to say use state. I think I must stop saying I'm going to say. And a string for now. So I'm going to say unknown location. Then last variable that I'm setting up currently, it's called the weather icon. Set weather icon. Let's use state for this as well. And in here, what I'm gonna do is just do a $sign, or let's do backticks, $sign, and I'm gonna pass through a variable called process.env, which is my environment. I'm gonna say react underscore app underscore icon URL. Okay, and the reason why I'm using backticks on this one, it's simply because I'm going to concatenate to that URL this following string, which is just an icon number, which is 10. I'm going to say add 2 times its original size .png. So that's my default icon, and I'm going to use throughout the application. Now with that said, what I'm going to do is, because I've done a Tailwind CSS tutorial before, if you guys haven't watched that one, I'm linking it now in the card above. You can go ahead and watch it. But I know that Tailwind CSS classes take a long time, like writing out all of those classes. So what I'm gonna do now is try not to speak while I write out all of those classes and getting the design out there, and then after that I'm gonna try to explain some of the classes that I am using in this application. So if you guys just want to see the end product, you can go ahead and download the end product in my GitHub repo, which is linked below obviously, or you guys can just follow forward this to where I've done the application and just go through all of this low level classes that that Tailwindcss uses. Yeah, let me just stop mumbling, and then I'm gonna play some background music for you guys. I hope that you enjoy this. So now I'm going to create the form section. So what I'm going to do is maybe just call this form card section. I'm going to make this comment. There we go. So let's do that form card section. That's if I can type class name. Seems like I can't type tonight. But that's not a Tailwind class. It's just one of my classes that I am using to add some extra styling to it. I'm going to show you guys the index.css file as well where I use that. As you guys can see over here, I'm just passing through that city variable, which currently is unknown location. So quickly, just to explain what's happening here, this is one of the classes that I actually haven't used. So I'm saying display this div item in flex, and then the flex direction will be column instead of row. So I think that is something I just need to bring to your attention over there. And I'm going to go back into silence mode. So basically what I'm doing here with this horizontal line is just giving it a height of 1, giving the background of white. I'm making the width 1/4 of the width, so basically it's going to be 25%, a rounded full, which makes the corners like super round and not sharp edge. And then my margin on the y-axis, which is top and bottom, is going to be 20 pixels. So now what I'm gonna do now is add the form. So I think from here on, I'm gonna start like adding some voiceover so that you guys don't feel like this guy has disappeared on us or something like that. So what I'm gonna do here on submit, add a function which I'm gonna create now, which is called handle submit. So what this function will do is once someone click on the submit button, it's going to run to capture that string and then save that string in this variable that we've created here on top, which is our search term, and then we'll do the API call to go search for whatever string that he has entered. Let me just close that so that we don't have those red squiggly lines. And this is basically going to be the same. As you guys will see, I use some of the same classes over and over and over, which is display flex, justify content center, line item center, width full, for 100% width, etc. So that's why I thought that I don't need to go ahead and just speak through this entire video. That's gonna take a lot of time, where I can just type fast if I don't speak. But if you guys would like to hear my beautiful voice, yeah, do let me know, and then I won't shut up. I'll just keep talking forever and ever. So as you guys can see, Tailwindcss also has the placeholder text that we can use, placeholder class that we can use to style our placeholders. So I just need to make sure that I say the type of this input is actually text, that you're not allowed to put in any other input. And I'm going to say on change, which is going to call a function, and in this function I'm just going to call handle change. And lastly, I'm just going to make sure that this field is required. That's my input field over there. And the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to add a button. And add the classes for this button. I'm just gonna give it a Z index of 10. And I'm gonna give it a type. Type is submit, and I'm gonna use an icon in this as well. Which is Fontawesome icons, if you guys haven't guessed it as of yet. So this is another class that I haven't used, which is cursor pointer. So basically what I'm saying is if someone hovers over this element of this icon, it must change the cursor to a pointer so that it can indicate that this thing is clickable. That's basically what I'm saying here. So for this one, I'm not gonna go create a standard function. What I'm gonna do is run its functionality straight out of this arrow function. Let me just scroll up so you guys can see better. So in here, what I'm gonna do is the following. I'm gonna use the browser API, which is navigator. I'm gonna say navigator dot geolocation dot get current position. So what it's doing is going to get the current position. If you haven't allowed it, it's going to prompt you to say this browser is requesting your current location. You're going to have to allow it, and only then you can get your geo location, which will be your latitude and your longitude that we can use to search for your current weather forecast. So you're going to have to allow it. If you guys don't allow it, then yeah, this won't work. Yeah, it becomes kind of pointless if you don't allow it. So let me go ahead and just close that div, and then in here is going to be my info card section, and basically going to be the same as the other one. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to just add a div, and I'm not going to speak through these classes as well. I'm just going to type out these classes, as typing without speaking goes a bit faster than speaking and typing, or typing and trying to speak. So I'm going to create a component which I'm going to call header, and I'm going to import that component in that section over there. That's why I have that header over there. I'm going to create a couple of components, but first let me just do all of this. I'm not going to save it because we are going to get an error if we try to run this. It's going to say that I'm calling an unknown component. Oh, actually, right on top, I think I forgot something very important. We are using state over here, but we haven't imported the use state, so this would have also given like another error on its own. So let's go ahead and do that. I do believe that some of you guys have probably noticed that and have said it in the comments like, hey dude, you forgot to import use state from React. So there we go, imported the use state from React, so that error is avoided. So let's continue with this. I'm going to say class name. It's going to display flex direction column, marginal y-axis, which is top and bottom, it's going to be 10. And in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run an if statement inside of this. So I'm just going to type out everything now, and then we'll just get back to it. So I'm going to say weather data. Remember the array we created here on top, the weather data, which is an empty array currently. So that variable, I'm going to say check that variable's length. If that variable length is 0, you're going to display a different thing for me, or else you're going to show something else. Okay, so let's first do this. So if this array is 0, meaning that the search has been done and nothing has been returned, then let's go ahead and do the following. I'm just add a closing div, and then over here I'm just going to say, oh, let's do React fragment, so we get rid of those squiggly lines. This way everything's going to make a bit more sense. And let's say class name, and inside of this class name, call this container padding 4 all over flex item center. So the uppercase class here as well, as you guys must have guessed it just changed the text. It's a text transform to uppercase. So I'm passing through that variable node data as well, which is this one here. This is no data yet, and we're going to set the no data to change as well right here at the top. So that's that. So inside of this we add fragments. So this is like just without adding a div tag. We can use that if we don't want to add an extra div tag, but to still wrap content in, because React wants everything to be wrapped in one element. So I'm just going to add a class, an h1 tag. I'm adding the class name to text. So the 5XL is just to make the text 5 times extra large. And then this is the other component that I'm going to create as well. It's called detail card. And then this detail card, I'm going to pass through some variables that I'm going to use in this component. So I'm just going to call this weather icon, and I'm going to pass through that variable we created on top, which was called the weather icon. And then data is, as you guys must have guessed it, the weather data. I'm going to pass that through to that component. And in a moment, we're going to go ahead and create those components that we are going to use. I'm going to say more on, I'm going to pass through the city name. And we're going to add some styling to this by adding some low-level classes. So MB is margin bottom, MT is margin top. I feel that I just needed to inform you guys about that one. So grid is to say display grid, and I'm gonna say grid calls, so grid columns are going to be 2, so it's going to do a repeat of 2. And then the gap, I'm just going to add a gap to this of 2 as well. And in here I'm going to do the same thing. So what I'm going to do is say weather data, that's like if we return the weather data dot list dot map. So I'm going to take this array, and inside of that array I'm going to have an array called list, which is returned from the API call. I'm going to map through that, and the way I'm going to do it is by passing through the days and also the index of that day, doing an arrow function. And I'm going to do a check here, because what I want to do is if the first index is going to go pass through to this, so I'm going to use only the first index of this array using the detail card. So I don't want to use it again here, so I want to get the next one. So what I'm going to do is just do a quick if statement in here and say if index is more than 0, because this index is actually going to be 0 in the array. So if the current index is more than 0, let's return the following. So I'm going to do I'm missing some quickly breakouts here. Let me just scroll down for a better view. So I'm going to say return, and then another component that I'm going to go create, it's called summary card. And the summary card, I'm going to pass through some variables as well. So the first thing, when you do a map or you loop over something, React is going to nag you for a key. So I'm just going to provide that to React quickly, and the key that I'm going to use is index, because this key won't ever be the same for any one of these. And then I'm going to pass through the data, which is going to just say day, the current day, which is going to be days. So then I'm passing through that to this one, and I can use it on the other side. Right, so I think that's about it with this layout. So if I save this, I'm going to get a couple of errors because of the components and also the functions. So I think what I'm going to do is just go ahead and create those components. I'm going to save this. I'm not going to run it. I'm going to go create those components. Let me just hit Control B. So in my source directory, what I'm going to do is just close it, make sure I'm in that source directory, create a new folder. I'm going to call it components, and then I'm going to create a new component inside of this. So my first component I'm going to call detail card.js. Create a second component, which I'm going to call header.js. Another component which is called summary detail. Then I call it summary card.js. Let me just see if I go back here. That one, I have the header detail summary card. Yes, I called it summary card.js. So those are my three components that I'm going to use. So the first one I'm going to sort out is just my header component, which is just more around styling than anything else. So let me go over there and start up that one. I'm going to say React component function export. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to generate that boilerplate for me. I'm going to remove the import as I'm not going to use it. So inside of this, I'm just going to change this div instead of a div to an unordered list. And I'm going to add my class name to this. So this also is going to be quite heavy on the class names. So yeah, I'm going to do my disappearing act on you guys, and I'm just going to type out all of those classes. And now I'm going to create a couple of list items. That's not a list item. That's a list item. Okay, so those guys, they have a couple of classes which is the same. I'm just going to go ahead and add those classes. Text extra small, text gray 800, and let's add some custom classes. So this border B then -2, it's actually adding a border bottom width 2. So that's basically just saying border bottom 2. I think the nice thing about this lower level classes that Tailwind CSS uses is that they kind of self-explanatory. Like if you want to add a border, you just type border and then what color, green. So, and then you just add the color, then you have a border which is green, you have a border which is bottom which is 2. So if I wanted to add a border top, I'll definitely just think of the word what I want to add is a border, where I want to add it just at the top, and how thick do I want it to be, 1, and that's it. And you get your border top 1, which is like, for me this is really something. All right, so I'm just gonna say cursor is gonna be pointer, so that whenever someone hovers over this, it gives them the pointer cursor. I'm hit Control B just to close my sidebar over there, you guys, so you guys can better see the code. So I'm just gonna call this weather. This one I'm gonna call alerts, and we have map, satellite, news, and let's add the other classes here as well. So what I'm doing over here, what Tailwind allows us to do is actually add a class called hover, which will enter the hover state. So I'm saying on the hover state, I want you to add a border here at the bottom as well, which is going to be green 400. So basically I'm saying give it a border of 2 width bottom, but only on hover show the bottom, show the border at the bottom, and it must be a green color. Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying. This alert notice class over here, it's a custom class that I've created that I will show you guys in a moment what it does. Let me just quickly drag this over here and show you what it does. which is that little red dot over there. That's basically all it does, just to show that dot over there. And as you guys can see, this hover effect over here, we have that border green at the bottom just by adding those classes. Cool, isn't it? So let's go ahead and add more of these. So that's about it that we are doing in this component, this header component. Just gonna list out as this menu items over here, and as I explained, we're adding margin right of 6 in this 4 items so they have nice spacing, and the last one we don't need that margin. And then we're showing all of them must have this cursor pointer, and we're also doing some border bottom too in the other hover state. This one is on default, has that green border at the bottom. So it's exporting this header, that's fine. I'm going to save this. I'm going to go back to my app.js just to make sure that I am importing that. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to say import header from, and what I'm going to do is components / header. There we go. So that's imported. I can close this as I'm not going to return to this file anymore. The next thing I want to do is just save my app.js, go to detail. So what I'm going to do is just go to detail, detail card, and I'm going to start with that one. So with detail card, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say React component function export RCFE. I'm hit enter. It's going to generate that boilerplate for me. I'm going to remove this. So let me just start doing this. So in our detail card, if you go back here, let's see what's being passed through. I'm just going to scroll down to see where that is. So here we are. So in this component, we are passing through the weather icon and the weather data, and that was called the weather icon and data. So we need to use that in here. So that's what passed through as props. But what we can do is just deconstruct this by adding this curly braces and target directly those props. So I can go ahead and say weather icon, and the other one is going to be data. Okay, so this is basically just going and saying const, because you guys might have seen this in other tutorials, like this data and then from props, something like this. And then you kind of pulling this out of this props, and you can use these inside of the rest of this component. So instead of doing it this way, I'm just deconstructing it right in there. So okay, so let's go ahead and do the following. So what I'm going to do is also just deconstruct some data out of the data one. So as you guys have noticed in the previous one, is that I mapped through this weather data, which was an array that had a list of an array itself. So which means over here, this data over here is actually an array that's being passed through that has an array that's called list. So what we can do is in here, it just is to construct this. So I can take out clouds, I can take out main, and I can take out weather from here, and all of that is going to come from data over here and that list that we map through on the other side, and just say the first index of that. That's basically all that I'm doing here. So instead of inside of my component, if I wanted to take the main, for instance, instead of going and do something like this, saying data dot list and then first index dot main, just to get that value. I'm just deconstructing it out here, just pulling out all out of that information in this first value, and then instead of doing this, I can just go and do this. Much cleaner and is much more readable. So let's go ahead and add some Tailwind CSS classes. Yeah, gives me a time to breathe a little bit, guys. You guys will sometimes see that I'm adding this container classes and I'm not even using it anyway. Do excuse me for that. You can remove the container class if you guys see it not being used in the application. It's just that I'm coming from a bootstrap background, and if I want something to contain all of my other information, I just default to container. My mind just default to say make it container. So here I'm just going to add a height of a 1/3, which is 33.3%, the margin bottom of auto. Margin on the y-axis of auto as well. So once I've done all of the styling, guys, we are going to look at the functionality, and I'm going to start explaining as to where am I getting this information from that I'm pulling out over here. If you guys could see my side of making this video, you'd understand as to why I know what I know. The process, I think I'm creating like little what do YouTube call it, those reels videos, the small snippet videos, where I give you guys like a peek preview into the process of actually creating a tutorial like this, and how many times I have to go and do undo, start from over because a car just passed by and made a lot of noise. Yeah, so I think I'm gonna do that. If you guys would like to see those type of videos, go ahead and let me know in the description. Your comments are more than welcome. I actually suggest that you guys do send them through, as I appreciate having some sort of communication with you guys. So basically what I'm doing here is very simple. I'm just taking the temp amount from the main, and then I'm just doing a max round, so it returns a number to the nearest integer, whether it's going to be 1, whether it's going to be 2. So if main temp is 0.3, it's going to return 0. If main temp is 0.8, it's going to return 1. So I'm just rounding that down to the nearest integer. Okay, that's what's happening over here. So over here, what I'm going to use is the weather. I'm going to say weather, which is also an array at position 0 dot the main weather. And then inside of this p tag, with this, I'm just going to add an icon, or actually not an icon, but that image, which is the weather icon. Is actually an icon. The weather icon I'm just going to pass through over here, but as an image. I'm going to say image, and I'm going to say image source, it's equal to, and then I'm going to pass through that variable weather icon class name. So I'm just going to style this image. So the width of the image is going to be 1/4, which is 25%, and it's going to be display inline. That's basically what I want with that image. Paragraph tag, and I need to close this. I was wondering why am I getting that white P over there. So let's do some more of these. So that tracking widest is the letter spacing. So that's how far I want the letters to be from each other. It's just some design that I liked with the font that I'm using. Okay. So now I actually want to show you guys the date. But in order for me to show you the date, I actually need to install a package called momentjs, and let's quickly go see where we get that package from. I can say moment.js. Let's go to moment.js, and I'm just going to install it. You can either install it using Node Package Manager or Yarn. So I'm just gonna do mine using Yarn. So I'm just gonna go back to my Visual Studio Code. I'm gonna hit Control over there, and I'm gonna say Yarn add moment, and that's gonna install moment.js for me. And I'm gonna use moment.js in order to format my dates so that they are readable. So if we take a look at it quickly over here, so that in order to make the dates more readable. Okay. So while that is installing, I'm just gonna go ahead and pause the video and come back once the installation is completed. So let's continue with this. I'm gonna use moment.js in a moment. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm gonna say moment. So I'm using the momentjs library. As you guys can see, it auto imported right there on top, which is weird because you want to import my use state, but okay. And so I'm going to say moment.format. So I want you to format the date, and how I want you to format the date is as following. I want you to do the day, the month, and then the year. So this is going to be for these, give us the full day in wording, and then the month, and then the year, like the full year as well. Okay, so now that you've done that, let's go ahead and create a div, and I'm gonna add our class name, and here I'm gonna say margin y axis of 2 to border left 2. That's not a 1, that's the letter L. So I'm going to create the paragraph tags over here. I'm going to add the class names to it. So I'm going to say text. So that's going to be the color of my text, and I'm going to add a size to this text, which is going to be large. And I'm going to duplicate this down 5 times. And then the first thing that I'm going to echo out, so I'm gonna say real fill, which is the real fill space, and then the same as I've done on top, I'm gonna say math dot round to the nearest integer, take main dot fill like, which is what the API give us, and then on the outside I'm gonna say and sign degree colons, which is gonna give me that little 0 right here on top for Celsius. As you guys remember in the beginning of the video, as you guys can see, I'm hard coding this Celsius, but in the beginning of the video I said the challenge will be that to determine what location you are viewing in and what do you call this now, but which one are they using between Fahrenheit and Celsius, and then display either the F or the C depending on what they are using. So yeah, that's the challenge. Currently I'm just hard coding it, but you guys need to go and figure that out. And once you've done that, go ahead and let me know in the comments. Maybe just add your repo link for others also to take a look at your project and how you have done it, and that way we grow a community of developers. That's basically the whole aim of this channel, to help you grow and you to help others to grow as well. So yeah, I think that's a nice challenge for you guys, because what you're gonna do is you can actually add this in your portfolio piece and point out to that functionality that you have added to this application, which is something awesome. So it's going to need you to be able to think a little bit out of the box, plan how you're going to do it, how you're going to check what location, like what did they use between Fahrenheit and Celsius, how you're going to determine that location. Is it the API? You're going to look to the API to help you with that, or is it something you're going to try and add on your own, maybe adding like a JSON file with all the locations that uses Fahrenheit, and a JSON file all locations that uses Celsius, and then from there you kind of like evaluate what the user has typed in, and depending on that you go ahead and display either Fahrenheit or Celsius. I'm just thinking here, there's a lot of ways on how you guys can do this. I'm excited to see the ways that you guys come up with on how to tackle this challenge and complete it. I'm very excited, and what I will do is in my next video, if you guys have done and completed the challenge, what I will do is go ahead and feature your idea or how you have done it, and just explain it to the others in order to give you that credit, man. Give you that credit. Like I'll call your name in a video if you guys want me to. Just make sure that I'm not butchering it. Yeah, so everything I've done here basically is just self-explanatory, guys, but I'm just gonna go through it in a moment now that I've done that. So basically, if you ever look at this component quickly, what we're doing is we're passing through these two props over here, which is the weather icon. The weather icon we only use in this image to generate that icon, and then the data carries an array of all the other information that we are going to use. As you guys would see over here, we have the temperature that we round up to the nearest integer, which will be 27, 28, 29, etc. in Celsius. The same we're doing here, we're just echoing the description from this weather variable in this array. In the first position, we're taking that description, showing that to the user, also with the date, we're just displaying the date to the user in this format, which is day, day, month, month, year, year. And then we're doing the real field, taking that out also out of the main. We're doing the humidity, cloud cover, is it going to be rainy, is it going to be sunny, minimum temperature and maximum temperature. That's our detail card done and dusted. I'm just going to save that. I'm going to go back to my app.js. Just make sure that that's important. Import it. Let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and say import detail card, and there we go, import detail card. And now we've taken care of that error so that we don't get an error over here. And then last but not least, let's look at the summary card. So we're gonna do that one. So I'm gonna go to summary. I'm gonna close this one. Summary. So we're gonna do the same thing. Let's just import moment here on top, because we are gonna use moment from moment.js. I'm gonna do React function component export. I'm gonna remove React. We don't need that import. Summary card, and we are passing something to the summary card as well. It's not the key. This is just so that React doesn't nag us for a key. This is the day one, so just the day information. I'm going to do that out of props, deconstruct day, and use that day. So let's go ahead and do the following. So in here, I'm going to create a variable called day icon, which is the current day's icon, and the link to this icon I am going to get from my environment file. So let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to do backticks, $, curly braces. Let's say process.environment file dot react underscore app underscore icon URL. So once the icon URL, I'm going to say plus the day, which is this that I've deconstructed over here, and that day contains weather, and weather is an array, and at the first position of that, and also in that first position icon, that's what I want. So that's the icon name, and I'm going to say at 2 times its size dot png. At the moment this is not going to make sense, but I'm going to show you once I do a query to the API endpoint and we check in the browser the result we get back, and then we guys can understand where this is coming from. But if we look at this currently and we look at the app.js, so all that is doing is I'm pulling the same URL, right, which is this, the URL, and I'm getting this icon number. That's basically it. This day dot weather at position 0 of the array, at icon is the icon number. That's all that's in there. It's the icon number times 2.png. That's it. So in here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to return this as a list item, because if you guys remember, let me just do a list item here as well. We go back to app.js. Summary should be wrapped in an unordered list. So I have unordered list and I have summary card over there. So all he's going to do is just return list item for me with the details in it. So let's do class name, padding all around the 4, display flex, item center, justify center, background is gray, rounded corners of extra large, margin on the y-axis of auto, margin right of 1. And inside of my list item, I'm going to have a div to class name of margin on y-axis of auto. Inside of this div, I'm going to have a p tag, and let's add some class names to this as well. So font's going to be bold, text going to be 3 times XL, which is 30 pixels. My text color, so I'm going to say text, I want it to be a pinkish 600, margin bottom of 2. And like we did with the main card one, we're going to do the same thing in the summary. I'm going to say math dot round it down to the nearest integer, and it's going to be day dot main dot temp. And we do the same thing here, and per sign, say degree, comma sign, Celsius. Let's do another paragraph tag, add a class name, add some classes to it. Text to XL, text gray, 800, and my tracking is going to be widest. So it's just letter spacing, and in here I'm going to have day dot weather, which is an array, position 0 dot main. And I'm gonna have my icon image as well. An icon image is gonna be source. And what it's gonna be day underscore icon. Add some class names to this. Width is 1/4. Display inline. Outside of this paragraph tag. Now you can use div tags or spans if you want to. I just felt more at ease as doing them all as paragraph tags. I'm gonna do day that weather array position 0 dot description. This is in the wrong place. You're supposed to be there. There you go. Let's do last paragraph and add some classes to do as well. So tracking wider on this one, and we're gonna pass through moment.js, which is passing through the day dot time underscore text, and the format of it is going to be day, hour, minute. I'm gonna say AM. I think that's it for this card. I'm gonna save it, go back to my app.js, import that. So I'm gonna say import, was it called, summary card. Make sure it's spelled the same, and save. Awesome. So I think we're done with the design part of it. Let's look at the functionality part of things. So what I'm going to do is just hit Control B, and I want to show you guys the long awaited response. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go to the browser. Just going to hit enter there. I'm going to do a Q, say equal, let's do New York, and app ID is equal to, I'm gonna copy my app ID. Don't mind if you guys see it, because by the time you guys watching this video, this was probably long gone. Paste, hit enter. Let's see, city not found. Let's remove the quotation marks. Cool, there we go. Okay, times like this are like my Firefox auto format this. But okay, this is what we have. We have our JSON that's being returned. Just copy all of this. Let's do JSON formatter so it can look like something. There we go. Hope you guys can see this much better. So what you can see is a couple of things that we do have. For instance, we're working with this list, and this list is an array. As you guys can see, we have the city, which is the city name. We have the country, population, time zone, sunrise, sunset. But we are working mostly inside of this list. So inside of this list, we have our main, and our main gave our temperature, our real feel, the minimum temp, the maximum temperature. That's what we used. We used our weather as well, and we used our main, which is like cloudy. We used a description, and we used the icon in order to get the icon number and make a call to the API again, sorry, to a different link in order to get that icon. So that's where we're at with this. And we used cloud, and then cloud will tell us the percentage of how clouded it is in our application. So basically we loved, or this application lives within this array that's being returned inside of list. So you can go ahead and do stuff like checking the COD, which is status. The status code, is it 200, is it 4, what status code it's giving you, and depending on that you can echo something out in the front end of your application. So I'm saying there's a lot of things you guys can do with this weather forecast API, with this application, to expand on it, build on it, and make it totally yours. It doesn't even have to look like the one I'm doing now. Just go crazy with it and make it yours. So this is our API, and this is what it returns currently. And now we're gonna do the functionality where if someone enter information inside of the input field, it will go ahead and take that information, save it in a variable created, and then do a API call, and then that API call will get us this information, and then the information will be displayed in our app. So let's go ahead and start adding that functionality in our application. So I'm just gonna go back to my Visual Studio Code over here, go back to app, and right above return, we hit Ctrl P to close the sidebar again. Right above return, if you guys remember, we created 3 functions. One was handle change. We had a handle submit here by the form. So if I just go down to form, so form, we have handle submit, and then in the input we had handle change, and then we had one more here we have one more function that's going to run once the application starts up. Or no, not once the application starts up, but the one that's going to get that's going to make the API call and get the data for us. Sorry, I'm thinking now of use React hook. What is this hook called now to make everything just fire? It's effect, use effect, that's the one. Like if you want to get a weather forecast once someone opens up the application, this is the one you would use, but we are not going to use it. We're just going to use our functions that we are creating now. So what I'm going to do is, firstly, I'm going to create my IP function, which is the one that's being passed through to this in order to get my current IP. So let's do that. So I'm going to say const my IP is equal to, and then my parameter is going to be location. So with ES6 you don't even need this, you can just have it something like this. That's still valid, but it's not really readable, so I'd rather have it this way so you guys understand that this is a param. You understand? I'm going to say const, I'm going to deconstruct out of this location. Before we do that, let's go ahead and do a console.log, and let's see what does this location has for us. I'm going to do that, and then clicking on this icon should fire that up. So I'm going to click save. I'm going to open up this, and expect that to run into a couple of errors. So let's go ahead and fix those errors. Hit enter, and you're going to run into an error because the application I don't have the functions first of all these that this guy's looking for, but it seems like I've misspelled the word state over here, and that one also give me an error. So I just need to make sure that I'm spelling it correctly, the misstate, and let's go ahead and create those functions in order for us to avoid getting another error. So I'm going to say handle submit, and then my handle submit is just going to be an empty arrow function. The same goes with handle change, and then my handle change is also just going to be an empty arrow function for now. So it's handle submit and handle change. Let's say save, and it's compiling again. So I'm getting a city is not defined on line 72. So on line 72 I have more on line 72 I have more on city. It should be lowercase. Save it, compiled. Seems like it's compiled. Let's see. Right, seems like we're getting somewhere. So I think the best thing for me to do now is just to add my custom CSS that I've added in my index.css file, and hopefully that will resurrect our application, because by now it looks super dead. So I'm just gonna go ahead and open up my index.css file over here, and as you guys can see, it has only these as the installation instructors. What I'm gonna do firstly is just import a font that I'm using. which is a Google font. So I'm just using Open Sans with the weight of 300, 400, and 700. That's the font that I'm using. And I'm going to do body. And inside of this body, I'm just going to set my font family. And my font family is going to be the one that I've just imported, Open Sans, which is a sans serif font. I'm going to give it a font weight of 300. And then my H1, I'm going to give you a font weight of bold, which is 700. Close my sidebar. And then I'm going to do dot form container, which was a custom class that I've added. And give it a background, just because I have a background image. So I'm going to say background URL, and I'm going to go ahead and drop that image. So inside an assets directory, so inside of my source directory over here, I'm going to create a new directory or folder. I'm going to call it assets. That's the one. And I'm just going to copy this image quickly off screen and drag it over there. So basically this is just the background image. It's that background image that I'm going to use in the application. It's in assets, close it, go back here, and I'm going to link to it. So I'm going to say assets, background image, that's the only one. I'm going to say no repeat, I don't want it to repeat. I want to say 50% by 40%, do a cover, and then over here I'm going to give a height. My height is going to be auto. I'm going to add apply utility from Tailwindcss. So what this allows me to do is actually use Tailwind classes inside here, and it will just add that that CSS property. So in instance, if I do width dash 2/4, it's just going to add that width 50% for me in there, and I'm going to go ahead and say padding all around of 5, and I'm going to round it 3XL. So when this renders out, this is actually going to be height, and it's going to say 50%, and it's going to add that pixels, and going to add that border radius. Cool, right? Oh no. So the next thing I want to do is add this alert notice, which is that after, which is that red dot that you guys see go big and small. Let me just leave that, it makes more sense. I'm going to say content, it's going to be empty. I'm going to give it a width of 5 pixels. I'm going to give it a height, also 5 pixels, so it's nice and square. Give it a position of absolute. I'm going to give it a border radius of 50%. I can actually give it a rounded like 3x would have worked as well. I'm going to say margin left, it's going to be 2 pixels, and the margin top, it's going to be -3 pixels. I'm going to add the apply right at the bottom. Honestly, I think I got lazy and I just decided, hey, why not just do this? So this animate pink basically adds that animation of a pulse effect for me inside of this, so I don't need to go write that animation out of a pulse effect. I'm just going to save this. It's going to show me 5 problems with that, and apply, and that apply, I think my Visual Studio Code doesn't understand it as of yet, but if I save it, close it, and let's see. All right, so seems like we're getting somewhere. I do think I must have added a div inside a div that doesn't belong inside of that div, and that's why my application looks the way it looks right now. So what I'm going to do is the following. I am just going to pause the video right now, because with all of these classes, it's not going to be easy for me to find where I went wrong. So I need to pause this, go search through it, and then come back once I found my error. Alright, so I'm back, guys. Seems like I found my error and just a little misplacing of a div tag, but the app seems to be the way I want it to be. So let's go ahead and complete the functionality part of it so that we can wrap this up. I can't wait to see your applications that you guys are going to be submitting through. So what I'm going to do is add the functionality of once someone starts typing in the location we wanted to save to the search term, once they click the handle submit, we wanted to actually do the API call, and then that API call will go ahead and return the data for us. So let's go ahead and do that. Just as I've explained it now, the next function we need actually is the one that's going to do the API call, right? But before we do that, I just wanted to show you guys this my IP one. So let's go back to the browser, hit F2 to inspect the element. I just want to see where you're at. Let's put you right there. So if I go ahead and what am I missing over here? I'm not seeing my icon. So that means that my Fontawesome I haven't imported. I need to go ahead and handle that. So what I need to do is inside my public directory here at top, it's going to go to public. I'm going to go to index right here, and what I need to do is just link it over here. So what I'm going to do is copy the link for my Fontawesome icons, and I'm just going to paste it right above this. Everything else I'm just going to leave. Just say save that. Let's have a look, and there's my icon. So if I click on this icon, currently you guys will see it says the domain name, localhost wants to know your location. If I click on allow and we look at this over here, so if I zoom in, you guys will see we get geolocation position, and that geolocation has this chords, and inside of chords we have our latitude and longitude. Awesome. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to close this. Const, I can actually go get that information out of it, so I can go get my latitude and I can go get my longitude. I'm gonna say from location, which is what's being passed through, dot chords, right? And then I can go ahead and pass this through to my function that's going to make the API call. So I need that function. So let's go ahead and create that function. I'm going to say const, and I'm just going to call this the function. I'm going to call it get weather, so it makes sense. Get the weather, and I'm going to make it an async function because it's going to get some. It's going to make an API call. I'm just going to make it an asynchronous function, and that's going to be my function that I'm going to use to get the weather. So whatever I need, whatever I do, I am going to pass through some information, whether it's a string or whether it's the coordinates, and that I can go ahead and just pass through a param here, which will be location. So that's the location that's currently the location of the weather that I'm currently trying to get. That's what I tried to say. So let's firstly do the handle function. That's the handle change one. So the handle change one is easier. I'm just going to say input, which is the input that the user is busy typing. And what I'm going to do in here, I'm going to say const deconstruct the value, and that I'm going to get from input dot target. So the current input, that target, and get the value of it. So get the value of the input, and I'm going to say set search term to that value. So I'm setting this variable over here to whatever is being typed as right here by handle submit. So handle submit is going to do two things. It's going to do e. I'm going to pass through that e over there, so I can go and say e dot prevent default, so that the browser doesn't refresh. I don't want the browser refreshing. And then next thing I'm going to do is say get weather. So I'm going to do the get weather function, and I'm going to pass through the search term. So I'm passing through what you have set in here. I'm going to pass through to this in order to do that query. Cool. So let's go ahead and work with the search term function, which is the function that's going to go ahead and get our weather data. So the first thing I want to do inside of this function, I just want to reset the weather data. I'm going to say set weather data back to an empty array. Once you've done that, let's determine how we want to search. So first thing we need to do, we need to determine, are we searching using a string or are we searching using coordinates, right? So I'm going to say how to search, and I'm going to check what has been passed through to us. So I'm going to say it's the type of location, So basically what I'm saying is get the type of whatever's being passed through over here. But I want to make sure if it's a string. So if this is a string, so if this evaluates to true, so I'm just going to check, is this type of string, and that evaluates to true, then our query is going to use, so we're going to do backticks. I'm going to say query is equal to $ curly braces location, right? Else, if this is not a string, that would mean that it passed through a latitude and in a longitude, the coordinates. I'm going to do backticks. I'm going to say lat is equal to $ and location at position 0, and we're going to do an and longitude. It's also going to do the same thing, is equal to $ curly braces location at position 1. I'm going to do Control P just to hide the sidebar over there, quickly explain what's happening over here. So what I'm doing is inside of this get weather function, the first thing I'm going to do is just reset everything to an empty array, just in case this is a second query you're making. And then what I'm going to do is we're going to determine how do we want to do the query, how do we want to hit the endpoint of this API. So we're going to say if location, if what's being passed through is a string, so we know that you typed in New York, you typed in Madagascar, etc. So that's a string. Just say q, so append this to the URL, which is going to be q for query, and pass through that string. Else you actually clicked on my location and you're passing through your coordinates, would be your latitude and longitude. So that's an array. The first position will be your latitude, and then the second position will be your longitude in that array. So that's basically what's going on over here. It's just a simple if statement. So the next thing we want to do, because we are doing API calls, we want to do a try catch. So I'm going to say try to do the following for me, and if it doesn't work, try to catch an error. Okay, so we just want to make sure. So I'm going to go ahead and do error. If there's an error, I'm going to do console.log the error for me, so I can see what is the error and try to debug it. So there we go. So inside of this try statement, let's go ahead and do our API call. So I'm going to say let response equal to await, because we are doing an asynchronous fetch. I'm going to say fetch backticks $ curly braces process.environment.react app underscore URL plus how to search. Okay, I'm just adding that how to search to it. So I'm adding either that or I am adding that to this URL. And then the next thing that I also need to add is my API, so that I can actually have access to it. So I'm going to say and app ID is equal to curly braces API key. Remember I created this earlier in the video. And then I'm going to pass through just a couple of more variables that I'm going to use. So and sign, I'm gonna the type of units, it's metric, and count is 5. How many results did I want back? It's 5. And exclude, I don't want hourly, and I don't want minutely. There we go. So this is our fetch that we're going to do. So basically I'm saying fetch, passing through the URL, and I'm saying how to search either a query string or a latitude and longitude, passing through my API key, and I'm saying my unit must be matrix, the count of the result that I want is 5, exclude hourly and minutely. So you guys can look at the API docs on the website where they kind of explain these for you, the other conditions that you can pass through. So what I'm gonna say, let data equal to await. I'm gonna say that response dot JSON resolve that promise. I'm gonna say create an if statement in here. So if data dot cod, remember I talked about the cod earlier, is not equal to 200, meaning that the status code is not equal to 200, which is okay. Let's do a set data. So our set data is going to say location not found. Okay, so I'm setting this set node data. So our node data, instead of saying node data yet, is going to be location not found because of that if statement. And I just want to break out of this, so don't continue with the code. Else, let's set some variables up that you can use throughout the application. The first variable I want to set up is actually the weather data array, which I'm going to set to as the new array that I'm getting back as data. And then I want to set the city. So I'm going to do backticks. I'm going to do $, curly braces. I'm going to say data dot city dot name, and say comma, do a space, $. I'm going to do data dot city dot country. So just to quickly show you guys what is this that I'm passing through here, that would be, if I go to this live application, would be that over there. So it's the city name and the country. That's what I'm doing right over there. Sorry about that. So that is the city name. The next thing I'm going to do is set my icon. I'm going to say set with the icon, backticks, $, curly braces. Let's do process dot environment file dot, so in my environment file, get my React app underscore icon URL. I'm gonna say add to it data dot list. Guys, still remember the list I showed you earlier? Quickly show you that again. I still have it open. Dot weather, and then in the weather, which is also an array, is first position, and that array, get it by string called icon, and then we do a at 4 times its size dot png. So somewhere I missed something. Let's do double quotations there, closing at, there we go. This should not be inside but outside, 4x.png. There we go. That makes more sense. And I think I've set up everything that I needed to set up. Instead of my IP, I just need also to pass that through. So what I need to do here is just to say get weather, and I'm going to pass through that array. Remember I said it's going to be an array, it's not going to be a string. So my array is gonna be those two values. So I'm passing through that array to that function, which is the getWidth function. That's it. So if I save this, hopefully our application should work. So if I go over here and I enter in, let's say Asia, let's click on the search. There we go. We got Asia, we got the country, we got Celsius, we got the icons. The font's a bit waggy, but I'm not getting that icon over there. So let's quickly sort that one out. So that would be my detailed component. I'm going to go to detail component. Let's look at wither icon, which is that wither icon. Just want to see why is my wither icon not showing. My main temperature is showing. Let me just do Control-C. Yeah, that was way too big, right? Let's see. I'm just trying to see now why I'm not getting my icon. Okay, I found my issue. A couple of classes wasn't named correctly. Yeah, think that I'm gonna type it better if I don't speak. Turns out I type worse if I don't speak. So yeah guys, I really enjoyed creating this video for you guys. I really enjoyed creating this application. I feel like I went way over 3 hours creating it, and I hope that you guys do enjoy playing around with it and also looking at the source code. Hit me up if there's anything that you guys feel that could have been better, that you can make better, and if you guys have gone ahead and added the video and made it yours, hit me up in the comments, share your GitHub links so that I can take a look at your projects. If you guys really like this type of content and like to continue making more content like this and have suggestions for other content, there's only one place to chat right now, and that is the comment section. So blow it up, hit the like button if you haven't done so. Do subscribe to my this channel can grow and help others find these videos if you find it useful. Until next time guys, stay safe.